Katya, why not?
I was tagged by Margaret Pinard to do the Persuasion Book Tag, which is an original tag by Amrita by the book. Persuasion, like many Austen books, has been successfully adapted to screen many times. Name an on-screen adaptation of a book published before 1900. For me, that is the 2004 BBC TV screen adaptation of Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South. And this tells the sometimes allies and sometimes adversaries story of Margaret Hale, who is the daughter of a clergyman in the south of England, and Mr. John Thornton, who is a cotton mill owner in the north of England. And the TV screen adaptation brings to life the characters and the key themes of the book. We very much get that whole sense of societal divide that Elizabeth Gaskell was trying to highlight in her novel. Question 2. In Persuasion, Anne and Captain Wentworth go through the wringer. What's your favourite angsty romance that isn't them? Some of you may already know this, but I was a real fan of the Bridgerton TV adaptation of Julia Quinn's first book in the Bridgerton series. And I don't think that the books are the most amazing books of, historical fiction ever written, but they are so entertaining. And I actually liked that Bridgerton, the TV series, did not try to be faithful to actually keeping to a faithful view of Regency period England. So I would say that my favourite angsty romance has got to be one of the Bridgerton stories. And there are so many siblings to choose from, but the person I'm going for is Francesca Bridgerton, because we have got a girl who most of you might be saying, who? If you haven't read the books. If you've only watched the series, then you will realise that Francesca's name doesn't come up very often. And that is because she's referred to in passing and very, very little glimpsed of her. And this is actually true of the book series as well, not just the TV series. So Francesca is the only introvert of the Bridgerton siblings. So it is only right that Francesca gets to have the most angsty, most melodramatic romance of them all. Question number 3. Captain Wentworth is a naval captain. Tell us about a book featuring a lead character who is in a branch of the military. I will go with Daniel Two-Shot from Promise of Blood and The Gods of Blood and Powder. Both those series sound so bloody. But anyway, if I had to pick the actual book, I'll go with Sins of Empire. And the interesting thing is Daniel doesn't appear here the most, but it is a key point, I think, for me to actually pick him out, because at that point, Daniel has gone through all of the things in series number 1, and he is at this point already quite further in his own personal journey. So Daniel has gotten to the point where he has been able to reconcile a lot of things. So he is a powder mage, and the magic system in these series is not overly sophisticated. So basically that means he snorts gunpowder and becomes strong, which slightly, I kept thinking, gosh, he's snorting that gunpowder like you see in the movies where they snort a line of coke, like cocaine, and it's like, I don't know, but somehow it works in the end because you just get used to that. And there's another magic system within that. And Daniel's magic system does not actually gel with the other magic system. So it's really telling of his character that his best friend is someone who practices the other magic system. So he always manages to reconcile things. Question 4. British naval captains were famous adventurers. What's your favourite adventure story? I would say His Majesty's Dragon, which is book number 1 in a 9-part series. And this is a series from Naomi Novik and follows Captain William Lawrence, who starts out as a naval officer, captain in the Navy, and his whole fate is changed when they find a dragon egg. and he then ends up being chosen by this dragon. So for him and the rest of his crew, that was it's sort of a shaming moment, because there is a real dislike amongst the Navy officers of the other officers who belong in the Air Force. They think they're uncouth, so they're really horrified that poor Captain William Lawrence is now going to go off and have to be in the Air Force. So this is an alternative history of the Napoleonic Wars, and I just thought it was extremely creative, and I love the relationship between dragon and rider. The dragon is called Temeraire, which is why the series is called the same, and I'm hoping that I'm actually pronouncing that correctly. Question number 5. Anne is quite a dutiful sister. What's your favourite sibling relationship? I don't really see these books talked about very often, but they are in the Mirror World series. So this is book number 1, Reckless, and they tell the story between two brothers, Jacob Reckless and William Reckless. And Jacob is a character who is quite aloof in the real world. He sticks to himself, and then you find out that actually he's almost got like a double life, because he discovered a mirror in his dad's study, and he goes through that study mirror whenever he can, and he lives a very different life in this other world. It's a world built off lies and deception, but in that world he's managed to become an adventurer and a finder of relics. He actually enjoys the thrill of living in such a dangerous place and having to rely on his wits. But things change when William follows him through the mirror. William's been really successful. He's grown up to be a character who is very well adjusted in the real world, and the only thing that he seems to have a real regret about is not having a proper connection with his older brother, Jacob. So the inside sleeve says, "Through a mirror is a dangerous world. For years, Jacob Reckless has enjoyed its secrets and treasures. Not anymore. His younger brother has followed him. Now dark magic will turn the boy to beast, break the heart of the girl he loves, and cause chaos to rule forever. Unless Jacob can find a way to save them." You thought you knew fairy tales? Think again. Question 6. By standards of the time, Anne was a spinster. What is a book where the female lead is an older woman? This feels quite open-ended in terms of age, because Anne was about 27, but I'm going to go for much older, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because it won't be one main character but several. And The Joy Luck Club, which tells the story of 4 older Chinese ladies and their daughters living in San Francisco. And through their relationship, you get to see what their concerns are in terms of what they had to work through, the hardships they had to go through as migrants from China to America, and also trying to build the best life possible for their daughters, who don't always appreciate their mother's inputs. And that sort of divide between Chinese and American culture, which is very apparent in the relationships between mother and daughter, but ultimately through the exploration of the individual stories and the mothers trying to ensure that patterns that they had in their own lives don't keep repeating in their daughters' lives, unhealthy patterns, you find that actually there is such commonality. Question number 7. Persuasion is one of the most critiqued referenced books in English literature. Name a book whose plot or characters or central ideas reference another book. I'm going to go for a young adult / new adult novel that is actually based on Persuasion, and that is Diana Peter Freund's For Darkness Shows the Stars. And this tells the story of Eliot, who is based off Anne Eliot, and of Kai Wentworth. who is based on Captain Wentworth. The world that we're introduced to is very different from the world in Persuasion. It's actually a post-apocalyptic world that is just starting to recover from genetic experimentation gone wrong. The majority of the people who are wealthy and are ruling in this world are actually now considered to be, or call themselves, Luddites, and reject technology and technological advancement because of what happened. And at the stage that we join the story and we get to meet Elliot and Kai, we have got two very different groups. You've got the post-reductionists who are looking to say, right, we've gone through this, we're coming out of it, now it's time for us to look at progressing again. We can't just stay still. And yes, there was a mistake made, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue onwards. Question 8. Captain Wentworth made his fortune at sea. Tell us about a book with a self-made lead character. I will go back to Naomi Novik for Spinning Silver. And we've got a main character who is the daughter and granddaughter of moneylenders, and her father is so nice that he never wants to ask anyone to repay him money. And it's gotten so bad that her family is starving. She decides to take matters into her own hand, and she goes round collecting debts, and she is then given a reputation for being able to turn a profit, and gets that reputation of turning things into gold. She then catches the unwelcome attention of a king of some fae-like creatures. Question number 9. Persuasion has a lot to say about traditional gender roles. What's a book that plays with traditional gender roles? I will go with a duology of Eon and Iona. And you'd think this is because it's about a girl who's pretending to be a boy, but the reason I've actually picked it is for a side character called Lady Dilla. And Lady Dilla is born into a village where she's considered to be a twin soul, and in her village is revered for that. But she isn't in her village when we meet her, and she is living close to the emperor, so she's in a different part of the country. And in that part of the country there are real biases against people who do things differently from what they consider to be the norm in that city. And by being twin-souled, Lady Dilla is actually a trans woman. She has a real contrast between the two different societies of the part of the kingdom that she actually was born into, and the real acceptance that she had there, and respect, and then coming to another part of the country where she actually needs to be under the emperor's protection, because if she isn't, she's likely to be attacked. Lady Dilla's current position means that she comes across as a really good mentor for the other characters in the book. She's been through so many different experiences, and she's also able to always come back to pulling out the best lessons from that, and throughout the book treats people with respect and kindness. I'm tagging Tristan and the Classics and Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in space, and anyone else who would actually like to do this, because whenever I do a tag, please feel free to do it if it's of interest to you. Thanks so much for watching, and take care. Bye.